Okay, so this is by no means intended to be an exhaustive account of the Paris Commune, and seeing as how, in European history at least, the Paris Commune represents a unique political climate or movement in the sense that democratic popular processes affected the development of the commune daily. So the way people got together, the way they organized, the things they actually wanted to see change, and the initiatives that they took themselves changed the commune and helped define the commune exponentially in ways that I think are unique to European history. So what I tried to look at in this paper was the achievements of women in the commune, because as Marx, Lenin, Engels often talk about the commune, it's normally about the achievements of the commune in general, which normally focuses on the men of the commune. They, a lot of talk about Blanquet, about Proudhon. You hear a lot about the ideas and the conceptual fathers, but you don't get a real taste for what was concretely being done by the masses of people and the spontaneous organizations that were being developed, much like the Women's Union I'll be discussing. So I don't focus on any specific women or any individual achievements. I look at the movement as a whole and what the women of the Paris Commune were able to achieve that was so exceptional for the time. The Paris Commune of 1871 marked a radical transition in Parisian consciousness. If only for 2 months, the people of Paris transformed the social ties of society and established what they would refer to as a working class government. Among these social transformations, the Commune bore witness, among the social transformations that the Commune bore witness, perhaps none was more important for the Commune itself as the dynamic role women seized in social and political life. Traditionally oppressed in a threefold manner, the church, bourgeois society itself, and the anti-feminist labor movement of the time, the women of the Commune overcame these numerous well-established barriers and began transforming institutions of education, marriage, labor, and grassroots activism. Simply put, women played an important and dynamic role in the developments of the Paris Commune. Prior to the Commune, and again after its violent suppression, the working class lived overwhelming lives of dire poverty. The stress of such lives, both psychologically and physical, cannot be stressed enough. As Eugene Shulkin, lay professor of European Studies at the University of Sussex, believed, quote, "Although men and women shared the same living conditions, women constituted a distinct stratum within the working class, defined by hyper-exploitation in industrial work, total deprivation of civic and political rights, lack of schooling, lack of skills, absence of employment opportunities, and a generally subordinate role dictated by prevailing customs and social institutions." End quote. These prevailing customs were austerely supported and mainly derivative of the Catholic Church, which defined women in terms of the self-sacrificing nature of motherhood and located her place in the sanctity of the home. In addition to this orthodox principled stance on women, the Church often aided in the suppression of labor movements which hit women and children most severely. I didn't include it in the paper because this was for a class, but just to elaborate on that point a little bit, there was, in 1848, during the initial revolutions in 48, there was a labor strike, a general strike, from a textile factory. So, as all of these textile workers are striking, the mayor contacts the church, and the church sends from a provincial town 200 nuns to come in and take these workers' jobs, to basically bust the strike. And this was typical of the church. The church wasn't just an austere, oppressive intellectual atmosphere or a strict religious institution. It forced numerous unions out of work through tactics like I've just described, and they participated heavily in enforcing the established order. Because the established order was always linked, and Adolphe Thiers himself was a religious, devout religious Catholic, but it was always linked with the ruling class. So it was in the church's interest, especially the Catholic Church at this time, to support the ruling class, because that's where they were getting their protection, that's where they were getting their funds. And so it was much more than is commonly known. It was also actively suppressing the labor movement, which of course hit women and children the most because they were paid less and often had a very difficult time becoming employed and competing with low-wage labor like monasteries, or that monasteries could provide. As the angry Parisian people forced the provisional government of Adolphe Thiers out of the city and began to establish their own government in the spring of 1871, which their government was the Commune, they created a space of separation between Parisian social life and the church, which was viewed as a traditional method of oppressing the working class. A space that no doubt many women were glad to enforce and push further. Outside of the Women's Union, which will be discussed in a minute, public education was the primary battleground against the church, and the primary battleground of women to cut their teeth in beginning political activity before the establishment of the Union. First, the church had, education was of paramount importance to women for several reasons. First, the church had traditionally held a monopoly on education, running more than 2/3 of the schools available in Paris, and with that, they had distinct privileges of who they would allow, and of course, curriculum. The second, because the Catholic Church's teachings enforced the subservience of women to men, and the idea that human beings are alive to suffer and fulfill their lot, not pursue happiness, this was a definite ideological component that women wanted to combat. The clerical school system taught children the anti-feminist and anti-worker ideas that had been wielded against the working class for centuries. On April 2nd, 1871, the Commune released an educational decree laicizing all church property, thereby turning it over to the community. In many arrondissements, arrondissements were basically neighborhoods, or sections of Paris. There were 20 in the Commune. In many arrondissements, women were the first to claim property, and they soon began to establish a new school system. Margaret Tignery was appointed inspector of schools, the first time a woman had held the position, and schools were open to boys and girls alike for free. This marked a shift away from clerical pedagogy toward a more secular system that could be incorporated into the gender equality the Commune was trying to practice. The most direct and influential effect women had in the Commune, however, was the Women's Union. The Union was an organization of women from every section of Parisian society, focused on recruiting and radicalizing women within the Commune. This provided them with an assembly to participate directly in the democratic developments of the Commune. You have to remember that this was a very uneducated populace. Women at the time were forced under just the basic daily stresses of life. There wasn't a sewage system. There wasn't a water system. Everything they did, they had to take care of. I mean eating, pooping, drinking. These things were traditionally the roles of women, and they were enforced heavily by oppressive social institutions like the church, but also just basic Parisian consciousness was pretty sexist at the time. And it's amazing that everything I'm about to go into that the Union achieved, at the same time these women were also upholding household duties. Because as much as we'll talk about the successes of the Paris Commune, by no means did they overturn anti-feminist predispositions in general. There was a lot of progress made. There were incredibly exceptional women, but they lived very difficult lives and fought a battle on multiple fronts while they maintained the household, took care of their own children, normally ran nurseries and education centers, and then also participated in the Union. But definitely keep in mind that they didn't have political training. So the Union and the arrondissements that we'll discuss provided a place for women to cut their teeth on political processes, to begin to understand what it means to be a citizen in the full sense of having political rights, being able to vote, being able to participate, having your voice heard. This was a unique place in Parisian society that really provided the first space women had to engage openly in an affective manner. The founding address of the Union appeared in the Journal Officiel, the newspaper that represented the Central Committee, on the 11th of April, 1871. The address makes a number of radical claims that were decades ahead of surrounding Europe in terms of both women's rights and civil equality in general. To quote, that the Commune representing the principle of the extinction of all privileges and of all inequality should therefore consider all legitimate grievances of any section of the population without discrimination of sex, such discrimination having been made and enforced as a means of maintaining the privileges of the ruling classes. That success of the present conflict, whose aim is ultimately to regenerate society by ensuring the rule of labor and justice is of equal significance to the women of Paris as it is to the men. So in this short statement, this inaugural statement, the Women's Union makes 4 astounding declarations. 1 is that all grievances are of equal weight. They claim that the Commune is enlisted to hear the grievances of the people. 2, any privileges based on sex was unjust. 3, men and women share equally in the burden of forming a new society. And the last and perhaps the most radical of the 4 claims, the Women's Union identified the discrimination of sex based in class relations. This was the first time a large French organization had done so. The Women's Union specifically located the inferior status of women in terms of class relations and urged every communard to take an active role in the dissolution of such conflicts and contradicting interests. The Commune had proclaimed itself a working class government, but the Union goes further. It identifies the working class comprised of gendered individuals of equal worth, bound to defend their rights as working class human beings. So whereas the Commune wanted to say it's a working class government, the Union actually defined that and said this isn't just working class, these are real people, gendered individuals, that have been under discriminatory laws, regulations, and consciousness or ideological beliefs for centuries. How successful was the Union in gaining the support of the Commune? In the Union's founding address, they also listed 3 concrete steps that the Commune could take to support them in their efforts. To quote, 1, order all arrondissement town halls to make available a room which can serve as headquarters of the women's committees. 2, request that they provide large premises for the meeting of women citizens. 3, have the Commune subsidize the printing of circulars, which are pamphlets, posters, and notices which these committees decide to distribute. All 3 of these requests were satisfied, and the Commune's Labor and Exchange Commission worked with the Union to establish committees in each of the 20 arrondissements. So the Union had a central committee, but it also had a specific presence in each town hall throughout the 20 different sectors of the Parisian city, of Paris, I guess you could say. The unions not only met to facilitate the discussion between women, they established trade unions, set up orphanages and welfare institutions, recruited for nursing and canteen aides for the National Guard battalions and medical stations, organized general public meetings, and were one of the principal exactors of the Commune law, stating that any abandoned warehouse could be claimed for industry and ran by those who worked it. So with the same as the laicizing of church property, when the Commune made a proclamation that now all church property could be seized by the Parisians and used accordingly, people still had to go do it. And the same was true of there was an edict, I think it was the 2nd of April, they said all empty factories, because many of the bourgeois, sort of middle class, upper class business owners left with Adolphe Thiers for protection. So their factories were unoccupied. And the Commune ruled that any group of working citizens that was able to go in and take over the factory basically owned the factory and could run it accordingly through the democratic processes which the Commune had outlined. But the Women's Union was probably the leading organization in actually going out and doing this. They went out and reclaimed the warehouses, they went out and reclaimed the schools and the churches and helped organize those for the means that the Commune had proclaimed. In this way, the Union had a profound effect on Parisian life and helped establish many of its short-lived institutions. They were only short-lived because the Paris Commune itself only lasted 2 months. The Central Committee of the Commune secured 8 million francs for the Union and distributed them at a rate of 100,000 francs a week. The 11 elected leaders from each of the 20 arrondissements were paid 2 francs a day, which was like 20 centimes, or whatever they called their cents, over the daily pay for a National Guardsman. So they were just paid standard workmen's wages. They met twice daily. They met once to discuss the local arrondissement activity, and again with the representative of all 20 arrondissements to discuss the collective issues and distribute the necessary funds for posters, pamphlets, etc. Any elected representative could be recalled at any time with 4 union members voting. The Union practiced these radical democratic processes to train women in social roles and better prepare them for participation in the greater commune. So lastly, I look at not only did they establish the Union, fight for education, women, and especially the Union, participated in the defense of the barricades during the final battle with Thiers' army. They did not just support their fellow communards in civic and industrial matters, but fought and died by their sides and for their dreams. By the communards' sides and dreams. As Olivier Le Sigeret, a historian and participant in the Commune, wrote, quote, "If they, women at the front lines, return, it is for a call to arms. Having formed a central committee of the Union at the 10th arrondissement, they issued fiery proclamations. 'We must conquer or die. You who say, what matters the triumph of our cause if I lose those I love? Know that the only means of saving those who are dear to you is to throw yourselves into the struggle.'" End quote. Women understood the stakes of their defeat and how everything they had worked to build would be wiped clean should they fail. They demonstrated their capability in just about every imaginable facet of political and social life and committed themselves to the final fight as bravely and courageously as any other Parisian, if not more so. Women and the women's movement, culminating in the Union, played a radical and important role in the development of and duration of the Paris Commune of 1871. That's it.